Good evening. You're listening to David and Gene and Roger, a Siskel and Ebert podcast. Across the hall from me, 3,000 miles away, is David Lawler.
How are you? And across the Great Divide, the expanse, if you will, is David Anderson.
And we're here to review Siskel and Ebert, an episode where we call it Siskel and Ebert, but it's really, at this point, it is...
It's what I used to call snake previews.
Snake previews. Yeah, sneak previews. It might be a movie with a snake in it.
Might be.
And it's an early-ish episode. It's from 1980, where they review Private Benjamin, Gloria, Terror Train, and I think there's a couple of dogs in there. And
there's a Treat Williams movie called
Treat Williams
Why Would I Lie?
Yeah, that they don't like, but we'll get to that.
They don't like.
So,
all right.
So we're going to talk about what's the first movie we're going to talk about?
The first movie we have on the list, Gene Siskel introduces Gloria, which I do remember seeing quite a bit on cable television when we got the cable television, starring Jenna Rowlands, directed by John Cassavetes. Mm-hmm. Now, had you ever seen this one before?
You know what? We talked about like when we first got cable. I think I did see it on cable. But like, you got to understand when this movie. I mean, this is kind of a movie for grown-ups. And it's kind of boring, even if you're a grown up.
It's kind of,
and
yeah.
If you're a kid, you're really going to be bored. So it's actually, like I don't want to see a movie. I have 10-year-old Dave does not want to watch a movie about,
I remember being riveted actually because it was a very scary situation, and this is a story that's been played before. I mean, and played since. It was remade with Sharon Stone several years later, in the '90s, the late '90s, I believe. And but the narrative is very similar to another movie that was almost like it, which was The Professional. If you remember that, starring Jean Reno, and Natalie Portman in her first role. This is the movie that put her on the map, and it's so disappointing now because she was such a great actor when she was younger. She became a terrible actor later on.
One of the more interesting filmmakers working in America today is John Cassavetes, whose films look improvisational. Scenes run on, the actors pause and sometimes fumble. Cassavetes' movies have a gritty, real-life quality to them. In Gloria, Cassavetes tells the story of an unlikely friendship between a 7-year-old Puerto Rican boy and a mobster's tough-talking gun moll, played by Jenna Rowlands, who is Cassavetes' real-life wife. Gloria, the Rowlands character, hates kids, but she takes this child under her wing when his family is slaughtered by the mob in the beginning of the picture. The mob is after the boy because his father gave him an accounting ledger exposing the mob's loan sharking operations. The boy and Gloria are on the run in Manhattan when some mobsters catch up with them at a restaurant.
It's the same situation where you have a kid in danger, his family, his or her family, Natalie's, is gunned down, killed. He's lucky he's out of it. Jenna kind of rescues him, but she's not really in this situation where she's going to be a hero or something. She wants to like turn him over to the mob or something, and then I don't know, gets to like him or something because he's cute.
Although according to their review, the kid's annoying. The kid's the most annoying part of the movie.
Yeah. They don't like kids in movies, and they even make another jab at that with the next movie they're going to talk about. But they talk a little bit about this. They say that, well, Gene Siskel says that he worries that John Cassavetes, if there's any success from this movie, he's going to go on and make more commercial movies.
What did he do after this? Was Tempest after this?
He starred in Tempest. Tempest with, who was it, Susan Sarandon and Molly Ringwald.
Ringwald, yeah.
And directed by Paul Mazursky.
Paul Mazursky. Oh, okay. I thought
he was great in it. Yeah, Cassavetes was an actor, and he would take the money from his from working as an actor. He appeared in Rosemary's Baby and The Fury and Tempest, of course, and other movies and a lot of things. He worked in a lot of like 50s and 60s television, and he would go and make his own movies with his friends. He would have people like Ben Gazzara, Peter Falk, his wife Jenna Rowlands, of course. People like that, and make movies with them on very low budgets or no budgets. You would just he's like one of these great guys. I really admired Cassavetes, especially. Let me see. Shadows, which was this black and white movie. He just sits his actors and has them improvise. He's very much like. He's very similar to another, I guess, Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols, John Cassavetes, their style is in that they allow the actors to direct their films, or they did back in those days. Mike Nichols mainly.
Would you say his work follows Dogma 95 before there was Dogma 95?
Definitely. There was nothing there was nothing extraneous or artificial about his work. He would just turn on the camera and say, "Go."
And they
It
mentioned
sounded like
that
such an old man.
mentioned that in the review. They mentioned all these other movies that Cassavetes had done, and he's like, if this is popular, then maybe these movies that we liked, these more sort of depressing movies, maybe they'll get released.
Cassavetes was so committed to making films that he would often take financial hits. He wasn't as loud or as vocal or demonstrative as Francis Ford Coppola. He would actually take out a mortgage on his house to finish a movie. It was very curious to me, this lineup of movies, because the majority of them, with the exception of Treat, they're all about female characters.
Yeah,
basically leading the way, like Private Benjamin and Terror Train.
And we'll get to Private Benjamin, but I will.
But again,
say,
can I just
yes.
say? Well, let me ask you, because our first episode. Did we talk a little bit about Mahogany?
A little bit. It was
at the end, right? It was one of their dogs. They were making the point about black people in cinema and how they basically took like a white story made and put a black woman in the role.
They took a bad melodrama that could have starred white people and just put black people in it and said, "Look, it's special. And look, it's interesting because we have black people in a bad movie."
but to me, even then, even in movies at that time and up to 1980 as well, I feel that there's less of a political statement being made in those movies compared to like movies today, with Sharon Stone doing the remake of Gloria, with Charlize Theron in this new movie Atomic Blonde. I feel that they're trying to say, look at this. These are women in powerful positions, and you're going to watch it and you're going to like it.
And we'll write articles about it, and then your friends will post articles from Jezebel, and you will read them. Because it's important, and you must know.
And if you don't like it, you're sexist and racist for some reason. But with these movies in this episode, you have these women, these very strong female characters in positions of power, more or less, and it feels like the first duty is to entertain, regardless of how bad the movies are.
Let me ask you this: now, you saw Wonder Woman, I haven't, but would you say that was not made in a much more earnest way of they didn't beat you over the head with this is a strong woman?
It was definitely
it was a good story. It was a solid story that just happened to have a protagonist. Yeah,
I enjoyed the hell out of it. I didn't feel like I was getting beaten over the head with some kind of a political message, because it's a comic book. It's a comic book about a woman with superpowers. I can buy that. I can't buy Charlize beating the hell out of 5 professionally trained assassins.
Why Would I Lie? This is a movie I hate so much you may have to restrain me on this one. It's supposed to be a comedy, I guess, and yet it's a comedy about very serious matters, like the adoption of a little boy, very inappropriate. And it's really offensive the way this movie tries to cram this serious material into a simple-minded plot. Why Would I Lie stars Treat Williams as a compulsive liar, and also, I might add, as a totally irresponsible and obnoxious buffoon. He plays a social worker who unofficially adopts a little boy.
Did you ever see a hat like this before?
No.
You mind if I wear it?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do, George. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go out and get some things. You got a baseball glove? How about a skateboard? Would you like one of those? Okay. Then I thought maybe we'd go see a movie. There's a new space thing playing. And after that, we'll have dinner. I know a place that makes great wonton soup. You like wonton soup?
I like peanut butter.
Okay. Hey, you got a fishing pole? We'll get you one of those, too.
Your father's being pretty good to you, isn't he?
Are you really my father?
What's that?
I said, are you really my father?
Of course I am.
Mrs. Crump said I didn't have a father.
Everybody's got a father.
Are you really?
George, would I lie about a thing like that?
Sure he would. He lies about everything. And that helmet, by the way, is his security helmet. But don't get me started on that.
As it leads into the next movie, Ebert introduces Why Would I Lie? This is another movie featuring a kid in a prominent role. And again, they talk about how they hate children in movies, which is so strange because now children are in movies everywhere.
You know, I think that at least with Siskel, this was before he actually he started a family kind of late. And I think that what happened was he just didn't like kids. Because I remember his review of Aliens was similar, where he didn't like Newt.
He didn't like Newt. Oh, wow.
He was angry about it.
Newt was awesome. I thought she was great.
It created this whole interesting dynamic in the film. He like didn't. He's like, I'm sick of these movies with these children in danger and everything.
If I didn't know that, I mean, if we didn't have that information, I would have assumed that the reason they don't like kids in movies at that time is because child actors just weren't that great back then. Child actors are a lot better because it's a whole industry is built up around children now, and they work children into the system, and they rehearse and they audition them. And I mean, like Natalie Portman. We're talking about Natalie Portman just a minute ago about how strong she was in The Professional, and how not so strong she is now growing up. And a lot of them, there's very few child actors that really popped. Jodie Foster. Fantastic actress as a child, fantastic actress as an adult. So in this movie, we have Treat Williams, and they complain about his character because they say he lies constantly. We can't really like him. We can't get behind what he's doing. He's searching for the mother of a kid, I guess. This is so strange because I never heard of this movie. I never heard of this.
I knew about this. The weird thing is,
I knew Treat Williams, I knew Hair, and I knew Prince of the City.
I remember.
And
I have a vague memory because this goes back to our cable memories. I remember it being on HBO in I think like January of '82. So because this came out, I think all these movies are like sort of late 1980 movies.
Yeah.
So it'd say like a year plus, 2 months after it's in the theaters, it's on because like there was a lot.
Yeah,
there was
maybe like 8 or 9 months into 1980, I would say, is the majority of the time. Some of these are
during this time. It would take a long time for movies. Now movies only.
These are late summer movies, I think.
Movies took a lot longer to get to cable at that time.
Oh yeah, they did. That's such a.
And if it was a big hit, it would take forever.
All we had, I mean, like, and it would take forever to get on video as well. I believe Private Benjamin came out 3 or 4 years after it was released on Warner. And I have the clamshell. Now I have a very big loaded question for you.
All right.
And you were probably waiting for this question, but you would think, shouldn't you ask me a little bit down the line? Now the question is, would Siskel and or Ebert enjoy movies being made today?
I know Ebert would, because Ebert was, and we talked about this before, he loved movies. He loved all kinds of movies.
He's like Tim Burton.
And
he just loves
believe
movie
me,
magic.
I mean, we get nostalgic, but there are a lot of crappy movies during this time. I mean, obviously, they're complaining on these movies. But see, we, as sort of customers, we can enjoy a crappy movie from the 80s or 70s on a nostalgia level, whereas he can enjoy a movie on a movie, and he would give movies. He gave Prometheus 4 stars.
Who, Ebert?
Ebert.
Oh, okay.
And he also gave Alien 4 stars. He gave Alien 4 stars. He gave Aliens.
But then he would turn around and give The Hitcher 0 stars and tell us it has no redeeming value, which is so crazy.
And then turn around again and give Cop and a Half 3 stars. So
he's just. I guess you just have to hit him. You have to get him in the right mood. Air condition the theater. Give him some really good popcorn and a nice, perfect seat.
Yeah.
So and not deal with people who hit him in the back of the head like a stupid filmmaker or I forget who it was. It was Lou Luminek from the New York Post.
Oh man, I
struck him in the back of the head. I would have smacked him.
When I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I not only had somebody kicking me from behind for no reason, because this is a nice IMAX theater. There's no reason to be kicking my seat.
It's got to be a child then.
It was a grown adult, because adults are idiots now. And then speaking of idiots, the guy in front of me, I swear, like the last 10 minutes, the movie is wrapping up. There's sort of a somewhat of a epiphany, character epiphany moment thing. They're zooming in. We're having an emotional moment.
Mm-hmm.
And God damn it, the guy is like with his cell phone. He's not just checking something real quick. He's like scrolling, like
Isn't there like some kind of a thing that says, "Please turn off your cell phones"?
Oh, of course. There's a thing at the very beginning. They say, "Please." It's very rude. People don't care.
When they both agree on a movie and they both agree on the reasons the movie sucks, they start singing. I mean, they start. It turns into a gospel song about. Ebert calls it an idiot plot.
Yeah.
He says,
which is something. He's something he brings up in one of his books of what the idiot plot is.
Uh-huh.
And
he does it again in this episode too, referring to another movie.
Yeah, and you say it was I felt it was like jazz. It was like they had this glimmer in their eye. They love tearing a movie apart.
Oh yeah, definitely. When they agree, I mean, it's like that's it. It's a bilateral decision, and they are going to nuke the filmmakers at the end of this. And they even call it an insult to the intelligence of everyone in the audience. This movie, Why Would I Lie? It doesn't. I don't know. Watching it, it just looks like your standard kind of melodrama from the '70s or late '70s, early '80s.
Yeah, it doesn't even look enjoyable on like a let's watch a crappy. It's not crappy enough to be like a really crappy movie that you can enjoy on a cheese level.
Maybe like a made-for-TV movie or something like that.
And we were talking about a TV movie that we may or may not review,
right?
And like that looks, from what I saw, it looks like it's enjoyable on a ton of different levels.
It looks cute.
You already watched? Did you watch some of it or?
I watched the whole thing through.
Okay, so
I got to tell you, I mean, for any movie of any kind, it's not terrible.
Okay. Well, and then of course it has the added level of
you don't even have to lower your expectations for a made-for-TV movie. It's not bad.
Well,
but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Where did you get this kid? Did he come to the apartment? Did you find him in the dishwasher? At any moment, they could solve this entire movie.
His attitude, the Treat Williams character, is also very smug. That's what really grates against me. He's got this pompous attitude that lying is better than telling the truth. And he goes throughout the entire picture proselytizing this attitude, and it's very aggravating. Someone ought to punch him out. That's the kind of reaction. I mean, we're both kind of violent right now. That's the kind of reaction that this picture generates.
This movie is not simply a bad movie. This movie is an insult to the intelligence of everyone in the audience. Okay. I hated it.
All right, well, let's step up way in class.
Okay.
Way in class.
Great.
Our next film is commercial Hollywood filmmaking at its most enjoyable. It's Private Benjamin with Goldie Hawn playing Judy Benjamin, a pampered young woman whose whole reason for living is to get married. When her second husband dies in a hilarious scene on their wedding night at the beginning of the picture, a distraught Judy Benjamin is persuaded to pay a visit to an Army recruiter.
$458 a month. Train you in the job of your choice. Pay for your food, your housing, all your medical, and give you a 30-day paid vacation. And let me tell you something else. A lady with your education and background could easily land an assignment in Europe.
Europe? I do need to get away.
And I promise you we'll get you in the best physical shape you've ever been in your life.
Be like 3 years at La Costa.
Okay, so next we get into Private Benjamin, which is one of my favorite movies back
probably
in the day.
highlight of this episode and the highlight of what they enjoyed.
Yes, yeah, I would say they probably like this movie more than the other three.
Yeah.
They do have a couple of criticisms, which is interesting, but
about the ending, about like where the story goes, and
Well, we start off. The thing they get the humor. They understand humor, but humor is like I wrote this in my review of Richard Pryor Live in Concert for Vintage Cable Box. That comedy is extremely subjective, like horror. It plays on our subjectivity. What do we find funny? What do we find scary? And they really enjoy this movie. They enjoy Goldie Hawn. They give her the highest compliment I think I've ever heard from a film critic, that she creates a character as a real person. She seems like somebody you would actually know. And that is high praise when it comes to a performance.
As far as movies go, as far as comedies go, comedy, I always feel like comedy is juxtaposition. Is something is not quite right, and let's find the humor in that. It's like always funny when you see something that doesn't quite fit. Your initial reaction is to make fun of it.
Yeah.
Or a person that's not, they don't look right, they don't talk right, they don't act right.
Well, also Private Benjamin is a rarity because it takes a formula that we've gotten used to. That was that started, maybe it goes back as far back as the Marx Brothers for all I know, but what was popularized was a movie like Animal House when they called it the slobs versus the snobs. Here we have a snob, and we're looking at it from the point of view of a snob who builds herself up into a better person.
Yeah, because I mean, the way they explain it is she was basically, not to bash on rich people too much, although we can bash on, I guess we can bash, they don't care.
She's basically what they would call a Jap.
Yeah, Jewish American princess.
Jewish American princess who gets married to Albert Brooks. They get married. They're going to have a storybook marriage, and he decides he wants to get sexy with her in the bathroom, and he's having sex with her, and he dies.
See, man, I am misremembering. I thought it happened like in the limo or something.
They had this wonderful wedding and everything, and she's like this woman who's going to be pampered for the rest of her life, and she, it's kind of a weird thing. It kind of fucks with a woman's head when her newlywed husband dies in orgasm on top of her, and it's there's a funny scene. They don't really talk because it's kind of adult. It's very adult. This movie's actually an adult movie. It's R-rated.
It's R-rated mostly for language. There's not a ton of nudity in it.
There's not a ton of nudity, but there is sexual situations like that. You could not put that in a PG. Even in 1980, you couldn't put a scene like that in a PG
I'm
movie.
just trying to imagine like what's the TV edited version of that.
Oh, geez, I couldn't even. They would have to remove a specific piece of dialogue, which is at Albert Brooks's funeral.
Yeah.
She's suddenly there. She's dressed in black.
Yeah.
And it's like she's got this look on her face like, I cannot believe this just happened to me. And I believe Albert Brooks's mother comes over and asks, if you could you tell me Yale's last words? And she just looks at him and says, she looks at her and just says, I'm coming.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and it was like, and the two young men that are with her look at each other and they're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But she gets bamboozled by Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean Stanton tells her, you're going to love the Army. You're going to travel. It's going to be great. And she's getting this impression that it's going to be just one long spa or something. Because she had like a kind of a nervous breakdown, I guess, when her husband died.
Yeah.
And she gets there and Eileen Brennan is one of the scariest women on the planet. She's just so fucking frightening in that movie, especially as she smiles at Goldie Hawn. Goldie Hawn takes her aside and says, listen, I think they sent me to the wrong place. Yeah. And Eileen Brennan is like looking at her like, playing this game with her. And it's just fantastic. It's such a great movie. And like I said, I had this on the Warner Clamshell. I think my mom grabbed it immediately. When she saw it, it was like, I don't know, $20. And so she just bought it, and it was one of our first titles that we owned outright. And I managed several years later to track it down on eBay, and I now have the clamshell here.
In good condition, and you've
It's
sat down and you've watched
condition,
it.
And I believe it's even the American version, not the Canadian version.
Oh.
But now their complaint about the movie is that they don't like that they feel a message is being thrown at the audience.
Yeah, but
the message isn't about. It's interesting too, because the message is not about the empowerment of a woman in a desperate situation becoming a stronger person. I think the message is simpler than that. It's like you have the strength within you to do whatever you want to do, and it's not something directed at men, and it's not something directed at women. It's just that we have strength. We can draw on our own personal strength. We can use our adversity to make us better people. And I guess they don't like that being thrown at them.
I mean, but okay, it was pretty much a straight comedy up until I guess like the last 20 minutes when I remember the plot, like, okay, some stuff happens, like she goes in the Army, some stuff happens, she's empowered. There's a whole thing with this, like she basically like embarrasses Eileen Brennan in some way, or something happens, and then
they pour some kind of weird blue dye into her shower, and it sprays all over her. And then the next day at their ceremony, she has to powder herself with all this makeup, and her teeth are blue too. That's hilarious.
But doesn't she like end up making friends with her too at some point in the
movie?
Yeah,
she earns the respect of everyone, including her drill sergeant. What's his name? Hal Marshall, I think.
Who would go
big,
over to the
guy.
TV series, I think.
He would wind up on the TV show. Yeah, that's right. Private Benjamin spawned a TV show that didn't last very long, but it stars another girlfriend of mine named Lorna Patterson, who is just beautiful. She was the guitar playing stewardess in Airplane.
Yeah.
So to sum up, I mean, like Armand Asante, asked her to marry. She's getting all ready for the marriage and everything, and then she just decides it's an interesting thing that happens.
Yeah, that was that was a little more of a revolutionary thing. This is 1980. I mean, this was
and
women
she walks
were
away from this. I mean, she walks away. She doesn't like his attitude.
Not a
He's
lot
got
of
this
women,
controlling
honestly,
thing.
Again, if we lived in the real world, not a lot of women would be like, you know what, It's Armand Asante, and he's rich. I'll do whatever he says.
Yeah. But I really do. I do enjoy this movie, and I actually want to see it again now, after hearing them.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in probably since its original, say, cable broadcast, so like 1982. So we're talking like I haven't seen it for like 35 years.
Okay. Now moving on, we go to Roger Ebert introducing Terror Train, which is, in his words, full of gruesome stupidity.
Mm-hmm. I have some thoughts on his criticisms of the movie that I think are invalid. But
I would have to agree. If you're going to say they're invalid, yeah, I would have to agree too, because again, this is one of the problems that we were talking about before. Horror and comedy are very close cousins because they depend on the individual's perception of what frightens them and what makes them laugh.
Come on.
What do you think you're doing? You could be in here.
You can't do this to me. Head while all the front two are losing theirs and putting it on you.
We are going to die unless we get some help. But I don't know who to trust anymore. I don't even trust you. He's back there with all of our friends.
Let's hope so. Huh?
I don't believe you.
I'm not back. Every man for himself. Lena, don't.
No! Let go of me!
Don't worry, it's only the conductor. Terror Train gives us lots of people getting their throats slit while the survivors scream and run up and down the train. One reason the killing go on so long is that everybody behaves so stupidly. This is another idiot plot, just like Why Would I Lie? Nobody seems to tell anybody else what's going on. A simple warning would be enough. Potential victims are forever racing into the wrong railroad car and locking the doors behind them. The producer of Terror Train says he hopes it'll turn a profit before there's a glut in the horror film market. This movie is a glut in the horror film market.
I think it's a horrible film, too. Very bloody. And, we're told who the killer is in an opening scene right away. So the whole movie reduces to when are they going to lift off the mask and find out who really is that's doing the killing. Very bloody because these are supposedly college medical students. So they have access to cadavers. So you get lots of hands being lopped off and parts of bodies being thrown around and buckets of blood. I'm very disappointed that a major studio, 20th Century Fox, would take on this independently made movie and distribute it.
There are two people I can't stand in this universe, and they're going to be in a movie together. And I'm going to do my best to try and leave the world before that movie drops. And it's a movie called The House. And it stars Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler. These are two people I cannot stand, and here they are in a movie together.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm allowing my perception of those two. I don't care how brilliant they are or how brilliant this movie is going to be. It kind of looks like Risky Business, except instead of a brothel, it's a casino they're running out of their home, which, make a TV show episode of something. The Odd Couple had a similar plot back in 1972. Family Ties, I think, might have had an episode too. Every sitcom has had this, and they're making it as a multi-million-dollar movie starring two people I can't stand. Anyway,
and it'll probably do well.
You probably disagree. Yeah,
I like Will Ferrell. I like Amy Poehler. I like what they do. It kind of goes back to the Private Benjamin argument of do a comedy of silliness, but like when they do comedies like this, they always try to get like a little message in there at the end. Well, speaking of misogyny, we're talking about Terror Train.
Yes, Terror Train, gruesome stupidity. David Copperfield is in this movie.
Yeah, and that was
a magician.
That was something. It was like Ebert complains about how you can't do magic in a movie. Well, you can't do magic in a movie or TV. Cut to a couple of years later, the Magic of David Copperfield, Magic of David Copperfield 2, Magic of David Copperfield 8, all these specials that he does.
Yes, he allegedly made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
His stuff works if you watch it on TV. So his argument about like how it doesn't work, it works. If you're doing a special, it works. Now, if you're doing it in the context of a movie, maybe, and then because you only have a little bit of time to do stuff, because you can do it as a special effect, but it's more about
it's just Ebert senses that it's not going to look realistic if it's on a screen.
It's a horror movie. What do you expect? And they not only do they get mad at this movie, they get angry at 20th Century Fox for buying it. Like if you remember in the review, they say, "And
Yeah,
why is 20th Century Fox buying this cheap Canadian movie when they don't have to release this stuff?" Yeah,
Cheap Canadian movies were the lifeblood of slasher films.
Well, Porky's was a cheap Canadian movie, a classic.
Yeah. But I'm also thinking of like Friday the 13th and what's that other one? The Burning. Yeah, these were all Canadian movies. They were what they used to call them tax shelter movies. They would make them in Canada, release them in the United States. They wouldn't have to pay taxes in Canada, and then it would be like a negative pickup deal in the United States. You make a lot of money. You clean up, and this is the height. This is probably the peak. No, maybe, I think the peak might have been 2 years later, but it was very close to the peak of the slasher film. Now, since we're on this topic, what is your opinion of slasher film? I'll tell you right now, I'm a big fan. I love slasher movies, mostly because I just love movies. I'm like Ebert.
Okay,
I love movie magic.
Here is my evolution on these things. Okay, I used to be scared shitless of them because they pop up every Friday. It was scary, so you Friday the 13th.
But that's good, right?
Your Halloween, it would just scare me. I'm like 10. Then I take the trauma and I internalize it, and I subscribe to like Fangoria magazine.
Yes, me too.
And then I enjoy those, and I read those, and now I'm not really scared of horror movies anymore. Then I enjoy them. Then you get into like the Evil Dead 2 time, like the late 80s. So like your Freddy, your Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, they're almost like self-parody, those movies.
But I'm enjoying them. I'm enjoying them on a set. Now I'm starting to get like I'm becoming a movie snob as this is going on. So I'm enjoying them on a cinematic level of like, but they're not like deeply offending me.
This one, not as a slasher movie goes, it's not at the top of the list. It's not like one of these seminal genre movies. It's kind of dumb. It's inventive in that they're on a train or something for some reason. And there's who's the killer in this? A conductor?
I thought it was David Copperfield.
I don't know, but I just know that Jamie Lee Curtis in one clip is like looking, and she's down the hallway of the train compartment, and
I think this was her last horror movie, though, wasn't it? This is like
she sees a conductor coming toward, and she starts screaming and freaking out. Mm-hmm. This I don't know. Didn't she do another one?
Well, she did I think this was her last one. This was like in 1980. I think this was her last horror movie.
After Terror Train, she did Road Games. Mm-hmm. With that's an Australian movie directed by Richard Franklin, starring Stacey Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis, with a Jack the Ripper who's killing people. It's very similar to The Hitcher in that way. And then she appeared one more time as Laurie in Halloween 2 in 81. And then after that, she stopped making horror films for a long time. Now, at the end of this review, they praise Jamie Lee Curtis, but they hate her being cast in these movies because she became a scream queen. And from what I understand, Paramount didn't even want to hire her when John Landis recommended her for Trading Places because they thought she had already been typecast as a scream queen in B movies.
So but it basically gave her a whole new career.
And it did. It did. She's wonderful in the movie because I believe Landis said it was unforgivable, her character, because she's the hooker with a heart of gold. It's a male fantasy. It would never happen, but she makes it work.
Yeah, she's still very young in that movie when you think about it, because she was 18 when she did Halloween. That was 78.
Right.
So this is 83, so she's like 23. She's still only like 23.
Yes.
This is still like young, hot, although she was still keeping it together even like True Lies.
Yes, this is true.
And that she's still only been in her mid-30s then, and she's still keeping it together.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, Ebert calls this another idiot plot. And Siskel agrees. He says, "Who cares?"
Yeah,
and that's how they end the review.
Who cares?
All right, so they're joined by Spot the Wonder Dog. I have no idea who the hell this is.
Who like, by the way, if anybody watches this, it jumps up and then it gets like confused and then sits over on another seat, and they're trying to sort of engage it, but it just kind of goes off.
Right.
I found that amusing.
Siskel's movie was Nightmare, but it looks bad. They say it looks bad. They say it looks terrible. Now, for Ebert, it's a movie called Bloody Friday.
Yeah, which they showed like the advertisement for it of like all these like 3 crappy movies, and then they show kind of like this movie at the bottom, which I think Nightmare is one of those movies.
Yeah, it was on the same bill in the theater of this news clipping that they had. But again, news clippings back from that time when movies were being released, and back then they had very few avenues for advertising, so they put a lot of that stuff into like newspapers and magazines. You saw a lot more back then than what you're seeing these days.
People don't even buy newspapers anymore.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
What do I say about...
I give this episode I guess I give it a thumbs up.
I give it...
very good interplay between them. Very good interaction.
Yeah.
And once again, when they both hate a movie, they turn into a duet.
Mm-hmm. But I am somewhat missing, even though I kind of took a dig at it when we were watching the very first ones and the early ones when they were very unrehearsed, like either unrehearsed or over-rehearsed, or very... They weren't as a smooth operating machine as they are in this one. Like, they're a little more smooth in this, and I kind of liked Ebert's...
Very much more comfortable, yeah.
I kind of liked Ebert's awkwardness. It was this weird, creepy vibe. He's a little more smooth now. He's a little more full of
Was it
himself.
my imagination, or was he not wearing a sports coat this time? He was wearing just a sweater.
Well, let's see. I'll check the... Let's check the tape. Let's see what we got here. Let's see.
Let's go to the videotape.
He is wearing... Anyway, he's wearing a... Looks like a... I think he is wearing a sweater. Yeah, he's wearing a sweater with a shirt in it. He's wearing
Just
a kind of
just
blue,
like a...
blue
right.
blackish... Yeah. He's kind of like, he's a chunky gentleman, so he's trying to kind of cover some things. So he's wearing, let's see, it's sort of a either dark blue or black sweater with sort of a George Lucas flannel shirt with the lapels kind of sticking out of it.
Cool. All right. And that'll do it. I'm David Lawler.
And I'm David Anderson.
And we'll see you at the movie. Oh, no. We're here to pump you. No.
We'll see you at the video store, probably.
Yes, at the video store. Good night.
Bye-bye.